Hello, so let's take advantage of LTI in Moodle. So the idea of this presentation is to cover LTI support in Moodle and going back to the basic of LTI to now the latest support of Advantage, see how it's supported in Moodle 3.9 and what would be coming next, and to do that in less than 10 minutes, so let's get started. So I like to refer to LTI link as super web link, and that's kind of how I see it started. So this LTI, why it's a web link? Well, it's a link you put in your LMS that goes to your tool, but because it's an LTI link, the LMS Moodle is going to inject a lot of data alongside the URLs. That's going to allow the tool to do something like single sign on the user, but know also which activity to launch, which course it's coming from, and all of this kind of all this information that will allow the tool to basically deep dive the user directly into the experience and allows for a much more integrated experience from the LMS to the tool by carrying the context. So the context needs to be signed to be secured, and at the time when LTI was specified, and they used OAuth 1.0 because OAuth 2.0 was not around, and so OAuth 1.0 used signature mechanics and a key and a secret that are exchanged between the two parties. So every communications between the LMS, between Moodle and the tool is going to be a signed payload using the key and secret, and the key and secret is the same on both parties. So in Moodle, it all started by you create a link, you put a URL, and it's more than a web link. So you put your key and secret, and because you put your key and secret and you declare this to be an LTI link, then when the user is going to click on this link, then you're going to go to the URL and you will carry all the context about that user. So soon after LTI 1.0, what was really missing is the ability to at least return a grade for some activities, because that's kind of natural thing to do if you link to a quiz or an assessment or something like that, to be able to return a grade. So what was added with LTI 1.0 into the LTI context is a way to return a grade for the user and activities that are being linked. So if John clicks on link quiz 1, then when he clicks on that link, the link will contain a way to report a grade for John quiz 1. And so this is a call here that is done using OAuth 1.0. So here, the way to enable that is actually very, very easy. When you set up your link, you just say accept grades from the tool. And this way, Moodle will include this information, which is, you see an example here. So now, okay, you're creating a link, and you're creating a link, and you're creating a link, and every time you have to put a key, secret, privacy, and the grading options. So all of that you need to repeat. So it really becomes important to, rather than repeating, is that for each link that you create the definition of a tool. And so a tool is going to have the core configuration, mostly the key and secret, the base URL. And then when you're going to create a link, you're going to say this link is a link from that tool. So you don't have to repeat the key and secret and this information. So therefore, you can just create a link or just specify a specific URL for that link. That's going to use the key and secret here. And if a link is graded, but again, the key and secret are going to be defined in the LTI tool itself. And so in Moodle, you can define the tool at the course level. But most importantly, you can also define the course at the site level. And so this tool being defined at the site level will be available for all courses on the site to use. And so a tool and a link. So what's the relationship here? A link can have actually an explicit binding. That means if you look at the database, at the link definition, it's going to have the ID of the pre-configured tool it's attached to. So that's an explicit binding. But also there is an important mechanics in LTI, which is based around domain matching. So that means if you put a URL, Moodle is going to say, oh, this URL is the same domain, matches the URL of a pre-configured tool. It's going to associate those through domain matching. And so we can see that in Moodle. So in Moodle here, you see when you define your tool, you can define the pre-configured tool. So you're going to go into drop down and you're going to select a pre-configured one. And so this way is going to do the explicit binding. And the mechanics to use actually a new course tool definition is to click on this little plus here. So it's a little bit hidden, but this would allow you to define a tool definition, but only for this course level, not visible for other courses. And also here the same screen, but here if you type a URL, Moodle is going to say, oh, this URL that you paste here is actually matching tool definition. So it's going to automatically bind this URL to this tool. And so here is the where you would actually define a site tool, and so you will go to the administration and external tool manage tools, and for now you have to use configure a tool manually. Why you cannot paste a tool URL here? Unfortunately, tool URL was mostly used as a mechanics for LTI 2 registration, and this has been deprecated. So forget LTI 2 existed. So that's it. So now This has been around for quite some time, like a decade or more than a decade. So it was based on O4 away, and this is a really getting old web standards with very little support in terms of library and issues around security. So it was time for a bit of a renewal, and that's what LTI 1.3 came around. It's a big refresher around the core mechanics of LTI. So what's in LTI 1.3? So in LTI 1.3, the first thing is that there is no more shared secret. On a tool, expose only its public keys, and a platform or an LMS only expose their public keys. So there is no secret being exchanged between the two parties. Also, the LTI launch mechanics is now based on OpenID flow. Finally, the service calls are also based on OAuth 2 now. So it's you need an access token to call an LTI service. So how do we configure that? So that's a nice thing with Moodle. You can actually migrate in place. Here you see LTI version. It's really going to say which kind of core mechanics do we use to communicate. And here we say, okay, we're going to use 1.3. And when you set 1.3, Moodle is going to generate you a client ID, which is really the OAuth 2 client ID. And since Moodle 3.9, when you configure your tool, you're going to be able to give the URL to your public keys. And as a tool, that's very useful because it just means you can do your key rotation at any time. So LTI Advantage is really this core mechanics plus a set of free extensions. So the first one, and very important one, is the deep linking. So really the deep linking is the process of creating or selecting a link to be added to your platform. So the idea here is that we don't want the user to copy-paste URLs, copy-paste parameters. We want a UI flow to create or pick content from the tool. So in the world of Moodle, you enable it just by saying you support content item message, which is the older name of deep linking flow. And then once you've done that, then it enables this button, select content, inside the add new external tool. And so now, rather than putting URLs and stuff like that, you just click select content, you go to the tool, select or create a thing, and get as a response back the information about the LTI link to create, which is going to pre-populate that form. So in the assignment grade service, you're not just limited to returning a single grade to the users that did launch a given link. Now you can actually create your own gradebook columns, and you can return a score to any user. So you don't have to wait for the user to click on a link to be able to return a score for that user. And the last service is a names and roles service. Really, it's a simple rostering service which allows the tool to know which are the current members of the current context of the current course, and therefore not have to wait for each user to be discovered as they launch for the first time. So there is a section in the tool definition where you can say for this tool what kind of services they can have the right to access. So I've configured a test tool here for the demo, and so it's a site tool, and you see here, so it has the LTI 1.3, it has a client ID, and it's using a key set URL. And so also it supports content item message and has the services enabled. So let's see it in action. So now I am in this course, and I'm going to turn editing on. So I'm going to select the test tool here, and it supports deep linking, so I can create select content. And I'm going to support, and I'm going to return a single graded link, and not right now that Moodle does not support the ability to return more than one link at a time. So I'm stuck to returning only one. So here a single graded link. And this populates this field totally. Set the gradebook column definition and everything. So I can just go and say save and display, which is going to launch the tool. And now this is a test tool, so it's going to tell me that deep linking passed, and the only issue is that it does not support multiple return. Assignment and grade services are getting the information for line items, so I can create a gradebook. I'm also getting the specific line item URL because we said that this link was gradable, so we can return score to that link, a bit like we did with basic outcome in LTI 1.1. And the names and role services are available, and I could even create and see there are two members. Actually, in this course, there is only one instructor and one student. So quickly, what's next? So we mentioned we wanted to return more than one link at a time, so that's work in progress. Also, we want to be able to go back to the ability to put a URL and say deploy this tool and have the tool configured, not have to do the rather complicated tool setup. And also very important use case being worked by your CLAs to be able to have LTI more than just in course content, but as in the course navigation and in rich text editors, so that you can inject videos and other kind of rich content through LTI in any text box editor. That and bug fixes and better gradebook integration and so on. So there is still a lot to be done. So on that, thanks for everybody that contributed so far, and we're not at the end of the road yet. So let's carry on. Thanks.